The Galactic Union's Grand Chamber buzzed with whispers when the vote concluded. For centuries, rumors about Earth had spread through every civilized star system. The humans were strange, volatile, and absurdly militarized. A single world, one fragile blue planet, yet surrounded by fleets that rivaled empires. It was an imbalance that defied reason. Thus, the Union appointed a single envoy to uncover the truth. Ambassador Celerin Threws, veteran of 100 delicate negotiations, bowed before the council. His assignment was simple in theory, but impossibly delicate in practice. Travel to Earth, establish trust, and discover why humans, alone among the stars, had chosen to arm themselves like gods preparing for the end of days. Arrival at Earth. Celerin's diplomatic cruiser descended through the Sol system with the cautious grace of a bird entering a predator's nest. Even before reaching Earth he saw them, warships. Thousands of them. Heavy dreadnoughts patrolling the outer asteroid belt. Interceptor swarms darting among Jupiter's moons. Entire flotillas drifting in silent formation, each bristling with weapons capable of annihilating planets. By Union standards this was lunacy. Even the great empires never maintained such numbers in peacetime. Yet here it was, routine for humans. As his ship neared orbit, Celerin's compound eyes widened at the sight of Earth's defense ring. Colossal satellites linked in a shimmering lattice, their barrels trained outward. A single volley from such a network could tear a hostile fleet to pieces. When Celerin finally landed in Geneva, the diplomatic heart of Earth, he was greeted with warmth and ceremony. Human officials smiled, shook hands, and welcomed him with speeches about peace and cooperation. Yet behind their warmth, Celerin sensed a strange watchfulness, as though they expected the shadows themselves to attack at any moment. The question. Over days of receptions and tours, Celerin observed everything. The orbital shipyards where carriers the size of mountains were constructed, the ground-based batteries capable of punching holes through moons, the academies where children drilled with discipline unusual for so young. At last, during a private dinner with Earth's chief diplomat, Celerin decided to ask directly. "Forgive my bluntness," Celerin began, antennae dipping politely. "But the galaxy wonders, why are you so heavily armed? No one has threatened you. No wars have come to your world. And yet, you prepare as though extinction is at your doorstep." The human, a silver-haired woman named Evelyn Ross, simply smiled. She swirled her wineglass, eyes distant. "Ambassador Threws," she said softly, "your people count the years of peace. We count the years of survival." Celerin tilted his head, baffled. Survival? From what? Her smile deepened, but she did not answer. Instead, she offered him another toast and changed the subject. Whispers of the past. Celerin did not relent. If humans would not tell him openly, he would uncover the truth himself. He visited libraries, ancient archives preserved beneath mountains. There, among Earth's fragmented histories, he found contradictions. Accounts of wars that no other species recorded. Carvings in stone depicting colossal beasts falling from the skies, burned by human fire. Myths of star demons banished not once but many times. The deeper he searched, the more he realized these were not mere legends. The same symbols repeated across cultures separated by oceans and centuries. Spirals of darkness, jaws consuming suns, and always humans standing armed, bloodied but defiant. One evening, as he left the archives, an elderly human scholar approached him quietly. Her voice trembled as she spoke. "You're looking for the truth, aren't you?" Celerin's antennae twitched. "I am." The woman's eyes were haunted. "Be careful what you find. The galaxy forgot for a reason. But we are cursed to remember." Before he could question her further, she slipped into the shadows, leaving Celerin more unsettled than before. Beneath Antarctica. Eventually, Celerin's persistence earned him a final invitation. Evelyn Ross herself requested his presence on a journey to Earth's southernmost continent. They boarded a military transport and flew across endless sheets of ice until a yawning chasm opened below, a colossal door set into the ice, guarded by entire divisions of soldiers. "This," Evelyn said, "is what you came to see." The doors parted, revealing a subterranean facility older than any starship Celerin had seen. As they descended, he felt a growing pressure in the air, a weight that made his thorax tighten. At last, they reached a chamber so vast it could have swallowed his entire cruiser. In the center stood something. Celerin recoiled. It was a husk, a broken remnant of a machine, or perhaps a creature, its surface both metallic and organic. Its limbs ended in hooked talons that could shear through battleships. Its maw was lined with fractal teeth, spiraling inward without end. Even inert, even broken, it radiated hunger. What is this abomination? Celerin whispered. Evelyn's expression hardened. The reason we never disarm. She walked closer, her hand brushing the cold surface. This is one of them. We called them many names: harvesters, star-eaters, shadows between the stars. They came before your union ever formed. They consumed without mercy, feeding not just on flesh but on minds, on the very essence of life. Entire civilizations vanished into their swarm. Celerin's voice trembled. But there are no records. Because the galaxy chose to forget, Evelyn cut in. The Council erased the memory, buried the ruins, silenced those who remembered. But humans, we couldn't forget. We were the last line then, and we nearly fell. Only through fire and steel did we drive them back. And so we swore, never again. She turned to him, eyes fierce. You wonder why we arm ourselves. It is because we know the dark still waits. The galaxy sleeps in comfort, but we remain awake. Because someone must. The weight of truth. Celerin staggered back, his mind reeling. If what she said was true, then every assumption the Union lived by, peace, stability, safety, was a fragile illusion. And if they return? He asked. Evelyn's smile was grim. They will. One day the stars will darken again. And when that happens, it won't be the Union fleets that stand ready. It will be us. Humans. Armed, prepared, and unwilling to let the galaxy fall a second time. For the first time in his long career, Celerin Threws was struck speechless. He understood now. Humanity was not paranoid nor mad. They were guardians, carrying the memory of a nightmare no one else dared face. When he left Earth weeks later, he carried a secret heavier than any treaty. The galaxy would continue to scoff at humanity's militarism, never knowing the truth. But Celerin knew. And he could not shake the feeling that, when the shadows returned, it would be humanity's guns that decided whether the galaxy lived or burned. The Trillion Dominion prided itself on diplomacy. Its ambassadors were skilled, elegant, and always in control. None were more respected than Ambassador Cirith Vel, a master of negotiation with a reputation for unraveling even the tightest webs of secrecy. When whispers about Earth's endless militarization spread through the Council, Cirith was the obvious choice. Why did a single, backwater species wield fleets larger than dynasties, stockpile weapons older than recorded wars, and train every generation as though extinction loomed? The galaxy laughed at human paranoia, but Cirith suspected deeper motives. If he could find leverage, the Dominion might turn humanity's mystery into power. And so he set course for Earth. Arrival and parade. The journey through Sol was sobering. Cirith's cruiser was shadowed the moment it crossed Neptune's orbit. Human patrol ships swept alongside, silent and efficient. They carried no banners, no colors, only the matte black hulls of predators. Their weapons gleamed in the dark like teeth. When Earth filled the viewport, Cirith nearly hissed aloud. Orbital platforms girded the planet like armor plating. Defense towers rose from the continents, their launch tubes opened to the sky. Even the civilian traffic seemed regimented, moving in precise formations as if trained for war. Upon landing in Washington, Cirith was treated with ceremony. Flags, speeches, and a military parade. The parade. Cirith had seen dozens across the galaxy, but none like this. Columns of armored vehicles rumbled past, each larger than starfreighters. Drones filled the skies in geometric swarms, their synchronization flawless. Orbital carriers descended briefly, blotting out the sun before rising again. And at the center marched humans, rows upon rows of soldiers, eyes unblinking, footsteps pounding like a single heart. It was not celebration. It was demonstration. Cirith smiled politely, but unease slithered beneath his scales. The first hint. Later, over a private dinner, Cirith tried to probe. He raised a glass of Terran whiskey and asked his host, General Marcus Hale, the obvious question. Surely such a vast army is unnecessary? You have no enemies at your borders. Why maintain fleets enough to rival the Union itself? The general's eyes glinted with amusement. We're not armed because of what you see. We're armed because of what you can't. Cirith tilted his head. And what precisely do you mean by that? But the general only laughed, clapped him on the shoulder, and changed the subject. That night, Cirith could not sleep, digging deeper. Over the next weeks, he pursued the truth with quiet determination. He spoke to veterans who had retired from nameless wars, to scholars whose research was sealed by classified orders, and to ordinary civilians who trained in militias as though it were common as breathing. Each gave fragments, nothing whole. A soldier whispered of battles in the void beyond charts. A professor admitted Earth's history contained wars that never officially happened. A farmer in Nebraska told him, eyes distant, "We build strong because we have to. The sky isn't empty no matter what they tell you." The pieces didn't fit, until Sirith began to notice the silences. The gaps in history textbooks. The deliberate erasures in galactic records. The way human eyes hardened whenever he pressed too far. It was as though an invisible wound ran through their species, one they refused to expose. The scholar's warning. One evening, in a dusty university archive, Sirith uncovered a scroll older than the Dominion itself. It depicted creatures of darkness devouring stars, and at their edge, tiny figures holding fire, fighting back. Humans. As he studied it, a frail scholar approached. "You shouldn't look too closely," she whispered. "Why?" Sirith asked. Her hands trembled as she pressed the scroll shut. "Because once you see them you can't unsee. The galaxy chose ignorance for a reason. But humans," her voice broke. "Humans remember. We don't get the luxury of forgetting." She left him staring into the shadows of the archive, chilled to the marrow. The hidden chamber. At last, Sirith's persistence forced a response. One night, a black vehicle arrived at his quarters. Inside sat General Hale, expression unreadable. "You keep digging, Ambassador," he said. "Perhaps it's time you saw what you're digging for." They drove to a subterranean complex beneath the Rockies. Security was tighter than any treasury vault. Layers of checkpoints, biometric scans, soldiers armed with weapons Sirith did not recognize. Finally, they entered a chamber bathed in cold light. At its center stood a towering mass of twisted machinery. No, not machinery. Something organic, fused with metal. Its surface shimmered faintly, as if alive despite being broken. Sirith recoiled. "What is that?" "A fragment," Hale said quietly, "of the things we fought. They don't conquer, don't negotiate. They consume. They devour civilizations whole, until nothing remains but silence." The ambassador's scales prickled. "But the council, there are no records." "Because the council buried it," Hale cut him off. "After the last war they erased every trace. Called it a myth. Safer that way. But we remember. We bled for the galaxy while others looked away. And when it was over, we swore we'd never let ourselves be caught unprepared again." Sirith's voice dropped to a whisper. "You believe they'll return?" Hale's eyes hardened. "We don't believe. We know." The burden of vigilance. For a long time, Sirith stood in silence before the grotesque relic. Its jagged edges seemed to twitch in the corner of his vision. He thought of the galaxy beyond, blissfully ignorant, mocking humans for their paranoia. And he realized the humans weren't paranoid at all. They were vigilant. The only species bearing the burden of memory. As they left the chamber, Hale spoke one last time. "Ambassador, you asked why we are so armed. It is not for conquest. It is not for pride. It is because when the dark returns, someone must stand in its way. And if that means humanity carries this weight alone, so be it." Departure. When his mission ended, Sirith returned to the Dominion changed. He delivered a report polished and careful, omitting the truth. To admit it would cause panic, upheaval, perhaps collapse. But in the privacy of his quarters, he kept one forbidden artifact, a fragment of human archive etched with the image of the Star Eaters. He studied it often, unable to forget the husk he had seen, the hunger that still seemed to linger in the air. And he wondered, in the quiet of night, whether the galaxy was wise to forget, or whether humanity alone was wise to remember. For if the shadows did return, it would not be the Dominion, nor the Union, nor the proud council fleets that stood ready. It would be humanity, scarred and armed, waiting for the dark with weapons in hand. And the rest of the galaxy would owe their survival to the very species they once mocked. The Galactic Council chamber was a cathedral of light, its crystalline walls pulsing faintly with the energy of 100 civilizations united under one banner. Yet tonight, tension hung heavy in the air. The question that had echoed through every system, every starport, every political chamber was finally being addressed. Why are humans so heavily armed? For centuries, Earth had been an outlier, one planet wielding fleets that rivaled empires, armies trained to perfection, and defense systems built on a scale no one else dared. Other worlds disarmed under the Council's treaties, dismantling weapons to ensure everlasting peace. But humans never did. At last, the Council had chosen an envoy to demand answers. Raul Korvek of the Valari Confederacy was no ordinary diplomat. Known for his relentless pursuit of truth, he had unraveled corruption within the Sargon dynasties and negotiated peace between species that had warred for millennia. Now he was tasked with the greatest mystery of all, uncovering the secret behind humanity's endless vigilance. Arrival on Earth. Ral's diplomatic vessel descended through Earth's orbit, and for the first time in his long career, he felt dwarfed. Colossal orbital stations circled the planet, each large enough to house millions. Defense satellites bristled like thorns. Fleets of warships drifted in formation, engines cold but weapons live. Compared to this, even the Valari military, the pride of his people, looked like toys. On the surface things were no different. Missile silos stretched across barren plains. Subterranean bunkers tunneled deep beneath cities. Even in schools he saw children practicing drills with a discipline that unsettled him. To Ral, this was not a society. This was a fortress. He was greeted warmly by Earth's president, Elena Marlowe, a sharp-eyed woman whose voice carried the weight of command. They exchanged formalities, pleasantries, and polite laughter. Yet when Ral raised the question directly, her response was evasive. "Ambassador Korvek," she said, "you ask why we are armed. But perhaps you should ask why your council allows it." The words lingered in Ral's mind long after their meeting ended. A wall of silence. Ral began his investigation, pressing military officials, scholars, and citizens alike. Each time he asked, the answer shifted but never clarified. One admiral smiled and said, "A strong sword keeps peace sharper than treaties." A historian told him, "Our archives are incomplete. Some truths are not for public eyes." A farmer simply muttered, "Better safe than gone." None explained the obsession, the sheer scale of humanity's militarization. Growing frustrated, Ral turned to the Council's own archives. To his surprise, Earth's history was missing. Wars glossed over. Records redacted. Conflicts noted only as suppressed disturbances. Entire centuries of human struggle vanished from the galactic record. Someone had erased them. The unspoken pact. Determined, Ral dug deeper, and at last he found a whisper of the truth, not from humans but from his own council. In sealed diplomatic transcripts, hidden beyond public reach, he discovered references to an unspoken pact. It was an agreement signed long ago between Earth and the Council. The details were redacted, but one line remained. Humanity shall remain exempt from disarmament protocols, for their role is unique and necessary. Ral's pulse quickened. A role? Necessary for what? He confronted President Marlowe again, presenting the fragments he had uncovered. She regarded him with cool calm, then finally, slowly she nodded. "Very well, Ambassador. If you have uncovered this much, then you deserve to hear the rest." Beyond the rim. Marlowe led him to a secure transport. They flew beyond Earth, past Mars, past the asteroid belt, until the stars themselves seemed to thin. At last, they reached a hidden station tethered near the edge of the Kuiper belt. Inside, Ral was brought to a chamber filled with relics. Broken hulls of ships that were not human, not any species he knew. They were twisted, organic things, fused with metal, designed not for travel but for hunting. Marlowe stood beside him, her voice low. The Council disarmed because they wanted to believe peace was eternal. But peace is only the space between storms. Long ago something came from beyond the rim. Something not bound by reason, not interested in diplomacy. It consumed entire star systems, feeding until there was nothing left. The Council could not stop it. They turned to us. Ral's throat tightened. "And you fought them?" Her gaze was iron. "We bled the most. We lost billions. But we pushed them back. The Council erased the truth, afraid knowledge would shatter their fragile order. They disarmed, pretending the threat was gone. But we know better. We remember. The first line of defense." She gestured toward the relics. "This is why the pact exists. We are the shield. Humanity is the first line of defense. If they return, we will meet them first. And we will hold long enough for the rest of the galaxy to wake up." Ral staggered back. The enormity of it crashed upon him. Humanity's endless fleets, their constant training, their obsession with arms, it was not madness. It was duty. "And the Council?" he asked. "They know," Marlowe said simply. "But ignorance is easier. Let the rest of the galaxy sleep in peace while we keep the watch." A choice of truth. When Ral returned to his quarters he was torn. He had the truth now, enough to shatter the Council's illusion of safety. If he revealed it, panic would spread across every world. Civilizations might collapse in fear. Yet to remain silent meant letting humanity bear this burden alone, scorned as warmongers while they protected all others from annihilation. For the first time in his life, Ral found no easy answer. He drafted 2 reports, one official, polished and benign for the Council, and one hidden, containing the truth, locked away for his people should the day come when the shadows returned. the Lone Watchers. As he prepared to depart, President Marlowe met him once more. "Ambassador," she said, "I hope you understand now. We do not seek war. We pray for peace as much as any species. But someone must keep watch in the dark. That is our burden." Rahl studied her, and for the first time he saw not paranoia but resolve. The weight of an entire galaxy's survival rested on the shoulders of one species, and they carried it without complaint. When his ship left Earth, Rahl looked back at the fortress world. He realized then that humanity's guns were not pointed outward in conquest, but outward in vigilance. And though the Council mocked them, though the galaxy slumbered in false peace, when the shadows beyond the rim stirred again, there would be one question on every world's lips. Would the humans hold the line? Rahl already knew the answer. They would. Because they must.